From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Tonight, reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. The United Nations today released a disturbing report on Iraq's refusal to come clean about its dangerous weapons programs. A special UN commission says Baghdad's attitude towards ceasefire inspections continues to be one of obstruction and non-cooperation, particularly, says the commission, when it comes to its potential nuclear capability. This new finding ensures that UN-sponsored sanctions will remain in force, and it gives new urgency to the question of how long Iraq will be allowed to drag its feet. More on Iraq's obstructionism from ABC's John McWethy.
Though much of the nuclear hardware was destroyed during the war, the Iraqi brain trust that built the program, largely from scratch, was not. The effort was led by this man, Jafar Jafar. What concerns UN and American officials now is that Jafar and his team are showing no signs that they regard themselves as out of business.
I must firmly request on behalf of the Special Commission.
In fact, at every turn, the Iraqi scientists have lied to UN inspectors about their efforts to build a nuclear bomb.
They seem to change their position with relative ease and admit to enrichment programs they previously denied, admit to a weapons program they previously denied, admit to a biological weapons program they previously denied, without really much difficulty, pain, or angst.
UN officials fear that Saddam Hussein will try to put this nuclear brain trust back into action if he can get the money to do so.
The combination of capital and this capability, human capabilities, can be quite potent.
After today's critical report from the UN Special Commission, it seems unlikely that the UN will allow Iraq to sell its valuable oil without restrictions anytime soon. But even if Saddam Hussein fails to get the money he needs, officials are concerned that the Iraqi scientists could go to work in another country that wants to secretly build a bomb, perhaps providing Iraq with part of what is produced. That was one reason so much effort was put into getting the personnel records of the Iraqi nuclear program, so everyone would know who the scientists are and whose careers must be followed in the years ahead, no matter where they go. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
For Terry Anderson today, confirmation from doctors of what seemed fairly obvious when we first saw him last night. He came away from his almost 7 years as a hostage in very good physical condition. For all those years, Anderson's sister was the one who kept his name and all the others from being forgotten, which made this morning's reunion so meaningful. ABC's Jerry King is in Germany.
It was a reunion of pure joy. From Terry Anderson, an emotional embrace for Peggy Say, the sister who had fought so long and so hard for his freedom.
Fantastic, wasn't it? It's great to have a sister like that. You get yourself in trouble and she just comes along and gets you out.
Anderson posed for pictures with Joseph Sicipio and Alan Steen. Now that all the Americans are out, we're learning more about their ordeal. Steen, kicked by his captors, suffers from seizures and nerve damage. Sicipio, chained outside in winter, has frostbite. Frank Reed complains of problems with his head, feet, and ribs because of the beatings. And Father Lawrence Jenko says the physical abuse cost him 20% of his hearing. Last night on Nightline, Thomas Sutherland said the food, isolation, and mistreatment was so bad, he tried 3 times to commit suicide by pulling a plastic bag over his head.
But I found out on each try that it got very painful. And as it got more painful, the vision of my wife and 3 daughters appeared before me ever more clearly. And I decided each time, gee, I can't go through with this, and I would pull it off.
Not surprisingly, from Alan Steen today, bitterness toward the kidnappers.
They took 5 years out of my life. Unfortunately, I think they're going to probably get away with it.
But at least now, finally, for the Americans, the hostage ordeal is over. Jerry King, ABC News, Wiesbaden, Germany.
Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi said today his country will stop supporting so-called liberation movements which have turned terrorist. He didn't say which ones those are. Since 2 Libyans were indicted for the bombing of Pan Am 103, Libya has been trying to convince the world that it does not support terrorism. The Libyans went out of their way to try to make that point to ABC's Pierre Salinger.
This is Rapta, the plant where the United States says Libyans are still producing chemical weapons. In their apparent effort to show the West they do not pose such a threat, Libyan officials allowed us to photograph the plant extensively. Dr. Saeed Qassem runs what the Libyans still insist is a pharmaceutical plant. He told us that 80 to 90% of the facility has been rebuilt since a fire in March of last year, but he says it's still not operating. There are signs in the plant that there could have been a fire, although the CIA claims it was all a hoax to pretend that the plant had been destroyed. A CIA document distributed to European intelligence less than a month ago says the Libyans were still producing chemical weapons at Rapta.
Well, this is, of course, a talk of intelligence. I am a professed pharmacist. I don't know anything about this. They say whatever they like.
It is clear the Libyans fear this plant could be attacked by the West. Behind these walls are radar systems and anti-aircraft missiles. We were also encouraged to visit the Al-Qala camp, identified in this CIA document as the principal training facility in Libya for the terrorist Abu Nidal. It could have been a terrorist camp in the past. Now, by all appearances, it is a Palestinian refugee camp. There are 60 families and 150 children living in modest homes. The Libyans also wanted to tell us they were having nothing to do with the terrorist Carlos. They showed us passports indicating that Carlos had tried to enter Libya in September of this year with his wife and family and $1 million in cash. Libyan authorities claimed it was the third time the government of Syria had tried to find a home in Libya for Carlos, but that he had been sent back. Libyan intelligence documents claim to identify the address and telephone number for Carlos in Damascus. There is no way of verifying whether the Libyans are telling us the truth about all this, but it is clear they are going out of their way to tell the world that they have changed their policy and are seeking to prove they are no longer a terrorist nation. Pierre Salinger, ABC News, Libya.
Coming up, defense lawyers question the woman who says she was raped by William Smith. The president names his transportation secretary to be his new chief of staff. And on the American agenda, a different approach to child care from the French.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Oldsmobile.